Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, Sunday, April the 20th. Ian Cameron and Alex B. Smith with you as we are one day into the Stanley Cup playoffs. It was great to see playoff hockey back yesterday with the 2 Saturday games, and now we've got 3 Stanley Cup first-round series entering the fray today. We'll break those down in just a moment. First, though, we'll look back on yesterday. Very entertaining games for the most part, but very weird in a lot of instances with the 2 games yesterday as well. Starting with the Blues and the Jets, where, the total was 5.5 at the open, shaded to the under. It actually got bet down to 5, and you were guaranteed a push if you bet over 5 at the end of the first period. That's how crazy that game was at the very beginning, and not a lot of people saw that happening, but crazy start to the game. The Blues get the first goal. The Jets respond with back-to-back goals to make it 2-1. St. Louis gets a tying goal late in the first. 4 goals in the opening period. St. Louis takes a 3-2 lead. Boy, did their power play look good yesterday, St. Louis. And that is something that, hey, if they capitalize and cash in with that man advantage, they are going to give themselves a chance still in this series. But at the end of the day, Winnipeg looked a little tight. It looked like at the very beginning, and especially in that first period, here we go. Same old Winnipeg Jets here. What's wrong here? Mistakes defensively, fumbling with the puck, turnovers, getting out of position. Both goals in the first period of this hockey game were a direct result of Winnipeg doing shit that you did not see them do very much as a team defensively throughout the season. Flooding the zone before the puck gets out, that's rudimentary shit. That's fundamental hockey 101. And twice, the Winnipeg Jets in that opening period fled the zone because, I think this puck's going out. Let's get going. Let's get our offense going. The puck didn't get out. And the St. Louis Blues scored twice on very similar situations in that regard. One on the power play, and then one there at 5-on-5 even strength. I mean, that's stuff we rarely saw from Winnipeg. It's like, how do you not make those mistakes for much of the season in this phenomenal regular season you've had? And how the hell now in the first period of the part of the season that matters most, you're making mistakes we never saw from you for the majority of the season? But let's give Winnipeg credit. As they're down 3-2, going into the third, and they knew if they lost that game, they're going to have to answer the same fucking questions. Are you guys ready for the playoffs? Are you guys ready? But they answered the bell. And the third period is the period that we have seen from the Jets most of the season. That was the Winnipeg Jets we've seen all season. In on the forecheck. Dominant and the puck in the offensive zone most of that period as they were swarming St. Louis throughout the third period for the most part. They tied the game. Kyle Connor gets the game winner in the final 2 minutes. And then, of course, to all our delight, because we all kind of liked Adam Lowry, Mr. Stanley Cup playoffs, to chip in offensively, he gets the empty netter to put it away 5-3 and get Winnipeg the win. But they were in on the forecheck. Physical. The puck possession, they had it the whole time. They gave St. Louis almost nothing at the defensive end in that third period. It was a clinical defensive effort from the Winnipeg Jets in the third period. I don't know why we didn't see that to start the game, but boy, oh boy, we saw it in the third period. That was the Winnipeg Jets that were the President's Trophy winners this year. That was the Winnipeg Jets team in that third period that you look at them and you say, that's a team that can win a Stanley Cup. Now, are we going to get that period to period, game to game as we move along? That's the big question. But one really good period and 2 periods from the Winnipeg Jets was still good enough to get the win in game 1 yesterday. I think that's probably a positive for Winnipeg. And if you're St. Louis, Alex, I can't help but think you kind of let one get away. You had a chance to steal game 1 on the road. You didn't get Winnipeg's best in the first 2 periods. Credit to Winnipeg. They looked like the Jets of the regular season in the third period. It's a winnable game that slipped through St. Louis' fingers yesterday. Credit to Winnipeg. They brought the Jets of the regular season finally with them into the Stanley Cup playoffs in the third period. Goaltender out. Hellebuck was great in the third period. Made a couple of big saves after looking shaky. I thought the first goal of the game that Thomas scored, good shot, but I'd like Hellebuck, a goalie of his caliber, to stop that one. personally,
Right.
if I had to ask. But the bottom line is, Alex, we saw the best of the Winnipeg Jets, the team that can go far in the playoffs in the third period. For them moving forward, it's about sustaining it period by period and game by game.
Absolutely. And we talk about it, and you'll hear us say this a lot in the next 2 months. We talk about the game script. We talk about the series script, and we look at things from that perspective. And you can break down each series in the playoffs, no matter which teams, and look from game to game, but look from period to period and kind of see if there's carryover. For Winnipeg, they have to take what they did in period 3, carry that over to period 1 of game 2. And for St. Louis, it wasn't that they played, like I said, a terrible game. They brought the energy. They just, like I said, needed to finish the fight. That's the biggest thing. And that's the issue with Winnipeg, too, is also kind of a cautionary tale of, we always talk about teams who don't have playoff experience. We're going to mention a couple of them today. And we talk about the jitters for them. Any team can have playoff jitters early, especially when you start the series, especially, like I said, when it was kind of just a weird start to the game, naturally. That's something that you could see from even the most experienced team. Tampa Bay could come out and have jitters. Florida could come out and have jitters as a team that's won the East 2 years in a row. So that's something to not let you discourage yourself. That's why I love this time of year we talk about live betting, because looking at how Winnipeg was looking in the first period, you could have just run and say, oh, this thing's over with. St. Louis is taking it. I'm betting the under. and then next thing you know, goals are coming, and like I said, Winnipeg gets back into their form. But being able to find, like I said, find that offense late. We saw that all year long with games that didn't matter when Winnipeg's playing Chicago and San Jose, and they're dragging ass and they're down 1-0, and you're wondering how the hell are they down 1-0? They come out with 2 or 3 goals in the third period. That kind of momentum, we've seen them do that in the regular season, and now to see them do that in the playoffs, that's good for just their psyche. You don't want to continue to win games that way, of course, but it's good for their psyche to say, hey, we did this all year, we're doing this now. So now, if we can get a victory here at our worst, we can play even better in game 2. We can play better in game 3 and 4 when we have to go to St. Louis. So, like I said, it's all about they're getting the mental cobwebs cleared out, and that's huge for Winnipeg. That's going to be huge for a team like Toronto, the teams who struggle. Minnesota, that's a goal that they should have looking in the game 1. So that's kind of the takeaway I had out of that game yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a fair point. No question about that. There you go. That's a great stat from Jonathan in the chat there. The Jets have won. I remember the Vegas series with bonus a couple years ago in the first round.
Oh my God, that game was awful.
That game 1, and then that was it after that.
And that game was awful for Vegas. Remember, we were just crucifying Vegas, saying that they were skating in quicksand. They had no momentum in that. I remember that second period of that game. It was like watching a game from the 50s. The way that they were skating, it was just bad. But then we saw how things turned around for Vegas after that. So.
And then the Jets survived in that OK Corral shootout in game 1 of the series against Colorado last year, and then they were done after that. They didn't win another game pretty much after that. So, like I said, it was a problem. You're right. The game 1s have actually not been a problem historically for the Jets the last 2 years. It's been sustaining it in game 2. 0-8. Yep. Right? Didn't know it was that bad. Holy shit. 0-8 for Winnipeg. In game 2, after game 1. So that's not what you want to see for sure when it comes to that. So St. Louis, like I said, they're not out of this, but that was still a game that was right there for them, and they weren't able to get the W and finish it off in the third period. But credit to Winnipeg for sure for that, no question. And you're right, they're still without Ehlers and Velarde, the Jets, to begin this series. So if they get those guys back, look out. Colorado, Dallas. Look, on the scoreboard, it's going to say 5-1 Colorado, and I will thank my lucky stars. We at least cashed my for the show best bet. I had to give it out at 6 because 6 was the best number, but my bet on the over was 5.5, and somehow it came through with the late flurry of goals from Colorado. We'll take it. He was not looking good halfway through the game, but we'll take it. Colorado with the 5-1 win. That was not a 5-1 type of hockey game though, at all. In fact, I give the Dallas Stars a lot of credit. I thought they played a solid game in a losing, even though it was a losing effort. Thought they defended much better than we saw during the 7-game losing streak. They played hard. I thought they were even as far as carrying the play. I thought they generated a lot of great chances. There's no question. I thought it was a very even hockey game. It was just Colorado was definitely more opportunistic there. And finished their chances. Dallas got into too much penalty trouble. That was a bit of a problem. And let's be real about 2 of the Colorado goals in that 5-1 win. fluky as fuck. I mean, there's nothing going on. Scoreless game, a bicycle kick type of goal off the skate in the first goal of the game there to make it 1-0 in favor of Colorado. It was a very fluky game, fluky goal off Lehkonen. The one of the power play goals that Colorado scored hit the stick of Lyubushkin, took a crazy deflection and went in past Ottinger. He had absolutely no chance there to stop that one. Colorado played well, but Dallas played well too. Bicycle kick goal paid 150 to 1. Funny, Jonathan. Funny. But yeah, I think when you look at that, second period over, we all talked about that, obviously. We've been talking about that for weeks. Like, we can't say anything more to you guys. We can't push the button for you. We can't place the bet for you. We've been talking about this for fucking months on this show now. The scoreless first period, how good the second period overs have been. And also how good it can be to bet a live over 4.5 or 3.5 if you can get it.
Yep.
Full game total after a scoreless first period too, because you would have hit that as well. I mean, these are just, tried and true things that we have seen pay off as far as live betting is concerned. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Scoreless first period, second period over, and maybe a sprinkle on a full game over too at the 3.5 or 4.5, whatever you can get at the time. You can bet 4.5, go wait till there's a 3.5. And take your chance. You can get that. I mean, it's amazing how often that comes through. No question. But to me, I thought if Dallas, now remember that was a 1-1 game. 2-1 Colorado took the lead in the third, and then 3-1, or actually it was 2-1 Colorado going into the third because Dallas cut it with the Hintz goal, and then Colorado got it to 3-1. Beautiful. By the way, how good was Devon Taves last night as far as everything? I know Makar gets all the attention. I thought Makar was mediocre. He couldn't hit the fucking net last night. He had double-digit shot attempts, and I think he only had a few, shots on goal, just a couple. But Devon Taves was awesome. And the play he made to be smart and see the open ice and just say, I'm going to that front of the net. Nobody's there. Nobody's paying attention because I'm the defenseman here up on the play. And to go there for the redirect to really put that game away, it was a very, very impressive job by him. He played a really strong game. And then there was the empty net. And then in garbage time, which cashed my over and cashes Alex's bargain bin special, Charlie Coyle, which is upwards of plus 500, by the way, with his goal prop to make it 5-1 Colorado. Don't be fooled by that final score. Dallas, despite all the woe is them, with this 0-7 finish to the season, no Miro Heiskanen, no Jason Robertson, how bad they were down the stretch. I thought they played a solid game, a game that was good enough to win. And let's tip our cap, Alex, to Mackenzie Blackwood. He was excellent last night. No issues with him as far as first playoff start, or lack of playoff experience. He was very good. Now, can he keep doing this is the big question. Can we get this Blackwood version of him moving forward, game 2 and beyond? But for last night, he was very good. He looked ready to be a difference maker. And even with still, concerns long-term of whether he can sustain it, he's 1,000% better than anything Colorado's had since Darcy Kemper when they won the Cup 2 years ago. He's better than Georgiev. It's not even an issue.
Yeah.
And he's better than Francouz and you name it. And the useless Onanen, who was in this organization for a bit. He's better than all those guys. And he at least gives them stability. Solid, and maybe doesn't have to be great, although I think he was great last night. He really was. He was terrific. There were some great chances the Stars had, especially in close, and he turned it aside and shut it down time and time again. So credit to Mackenzie Blackwood. You got to love the interview with TNT after the game. Really good. You can actually felt happy for him, believe it or not. Good guy, see the missing teeth, in the interview. That's hilarious. You don't see that for a goalie very often, but looks like he's been in a couple of fights rather than stopping pucks when you see him there with that big smile, missing that crest smile, as I like to say, missing all that Colgate smile. Yeah, but nevertheless, he was great last night, that 5-1 call. But if you're Dallas, you played solid. I agree with what everybody said. Hintz, DeBoer in the post game. That was one of the better games we played in a few weeks. I don't think Dallas is out of this series yet. Are they in tough? Yes, because I think Colorado can play at another gear. But Dallas not. I'm not ruling Dallas out of the series yet. That's where I stand. Alex, your thoughts on last night?
Yeah, Mackenzie Blackwood was definitely the top star of the game. I mean, it was just impressive to see the saves that he was making. And like I said, to show up in your first playoff start You can expect just about anything, but to see him play at a level that I don't think I've ever seen him play that well, even in the regular season this year, which has been his best run in his career, going back to even when New Jersey, when he first kind of popped in the league, and we saw, okay, this guy's going to be, it looked like he was going to be the heir apparent to Brodeur up in New Jersey, and he looked good, but never at this level. He has found a new gear in his game, and that's huge for Colorado. Like I said, it's the best option they've had since Kemper. You could even say at this point right now, he's playing better than how Kemper looked in 22. But of course, that remains to be seen just one game in. And like you said, Dallas played well, and it's good that you're hearing positive quotes from DeBoer, positive quotes, Thomas Harley as well. They say, it's the best game we played in a while. Harley says it's the best game they played in a month. So if they're feeling that, then that's good. That they have to put that into a winning effort in the second game. You cannot afford to go down 2-0 and head to Denver, I should say, head into altitude. Just putting yourself further behind the 8 ball. So it's a must-win spot for Dallas. You hate to say that for anybody going into a game 2, but I think right now you have to win this game if you're Dallas, because you go down 2-0, you're in a world of trouble right now.
They are. Although they did play well in Denver last year, but you don't want to put yourself in a spot down 2-0. And if you're if you're a Stars fan, and Matt Robinson's got the right approach. He's cool as a cucumber right now. Our guy, Matty Robinson, he's not stressing anything, even though they lost last night. It's like, chill out, everybody. Dallas doesn't win game 1s anyway. Every recent series they've won, they've never won game 1. They've lost 8 straight game 1s in a Stanley Cup playoff series. 8 straight game 1s they've lost.
And they've won 6 of those series. So
yeah. They're used to this. There's no question. That's why I didn't want any part of Dallas yesterday in that game. But I may want a part of them in game 2. We'll see. We're going to sleep on
if he's healthy enough to skate, and even if he can't play, you have to have Miro Heiskanen out there for pregame skate. You have to do that. If he's not healthy enough to play the game, that's fine. But if he's healthy enough to skate around, have him skate around and watch that building fucking gain some momentum. And that place is going to be loud as fuck for puck drop. Trust me. If Dallas, you got to do it. You have to do that because
it's just for show, just to get Colorado thinking, or is he legitimately maybe instead? We were thinking maybe game 6 or game 7 of this series if it goes that far. But the fact he's out there skating, could it be a game 3 or a game 4 that maybe we see Miro Heiskanen? We'll have to see.
But like you said, put some doubt in Colorado's mind. Give the crowd something to get hyped up about. Have him skate for pregame in game 2.
We'll see. Yeah, and like I said, it's Miro watch now in that Avs and Stars series for sure. But like I said, Dallas played a solid game. I think Colorado can give another gear, which could also be scary that Colorado won that game despite playing an okay game but not a great game, which could be scary about the chances for Colorado moving forward here as well. All right, next up, let's get to Sunday. We've got 3 games on tap, and we will begin with a matinee affair. The New Jersey Devils taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. We've got Carolina minus 220, home favorites, 5.5 being the total here in this game. This is, of course, ESPN. I think all the games are ESPN today. Yeah, ESPN in the States for this one, ESPN 2, because, of course, Sunday Night Baseball's taking up ESPN at 7 Eastern. So they shift Battle of Ontario to ESPN 2, and then back to ESPN, the main network, at 10 p.m. Eastern for Minnesota Vegas, assuming the fucking baseball game's over by then.
Wait, right? let me guess. I don't even know the schedule, but let me guess. It's Yankees Rays on ESPN for Sunday Night Baseball, right?
No, it's actually, I think it might, is it? Let me just double check. No, it's actually Padres and Astros, because that's the only game at 7 Eastern.
Okay. All right. So, one of the still 8 teams in baseball that they always show on Sundays. But, all right, go ahead. I digress.
Today. Mike Monaco and Mr. Ferraro for this game here, New Jersey and Carolina. So I like Carolina in the series, but I want no part of the minus 220 at any point in this series. I'd actually prefer Carolina on the road, maybe. You'll get a better price. And another thing I want to point out here, we have 3 bigger favorites today on the board. Now, I'm not saying they're all going to win, but you got Carolina minus 220. You have Toronto at around, minus 160 right now. And you've got Vegas at minus 200, minus 210 as well. Okay, and we saw both favorites win yesterday. Winnipeg won in the minus 200 range, and, of course, Colorado won yesterday. Both favorites won but both favorites scored 5 goals. Winnipeg scored 5 goals. Colorado scored 5 goals. We can't stress this enough as well. Team totals. Take advantage of them. And I'm going to be tracking this throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. How often does the winning team go over their team total? How often does it happen? And I guarantee you it'll happen more often than not. And these team totals, man, for all 3 of these games, especially the favorites, if you believe the favorites are going to get it done today, you can get 3.5 at plus money for all 3 of these teams over their team total. Carolina, Toronto, Vegas. All 3 of those teams. And again, we saw 5 goals from the 2 winning favorites yesterday, Colorado and Winnipeg. It is definitely something to keep in mind. Why lay a huge number like minus 220 on Carolina if you like them to win the game? Certainly if you're going to take them on any sort of money line price, take a shot with regulation or the -1. But bet that team total, because more often than not, I think you're going to see the winning team get to 4 goals in these Stanley Cup playoffs. We already saw it twice yesterday. In the first 2 games. So this is something to keep an eye on, and I'm going to be tracking it. How often does the winning team in the Stanley Cup playoffs go over their team total? It's already 2-0 for the winning team over their team total yesterday. Does that continue here today? Because I like Carolina in the game, I kind of lean to their team total, but I think this is a game too where, look, New Jersey's got 0 pressure on them. You can play loose as a goose. No one's expecting a whole lot. You're without Jack Hughes, and a lot of people thought weeks ago, you may not even make the playoffs. Some people thought, when the Jack Hughes injury, and they were without Dougie Hamilton at the time. The good news is Dougie Hamilton's good to go on the New Jersey Devils, and their only major injuries are, as we know, Jack Hughes and of course Jonas Siegenthaler, who's their best defenseman, and that is a loss. There's no doubt. Carolina pretty much fully healthy entering the playoffs. Freddie Anderson will get the game 1 start. We're not shocked. It'll be Jacob Markstrom, of course, for New Jersey. This is where New Jersey went in, and Tommy Fitz, this is why he went out and got Jacob Markstrom. Because in the past, you've had Akira Schmid, and you've had Nico Dawes, and you've had Mackenzie Blackwood with all the injuries, and he's playing better now, but he wasn't, in New Jersey with a weaker team, and all these different goaltenders, Vanacek, all these different goaltenders, and they weren't good enough, especially in the playoffs. And now you've got Jacob Markstrom, a veteran. Now, he had a little downturn for a bit. How will he fare here against Carolina is the question. I'm going to bank on some history here. And, I initially thought I'm going to kind of go reverse engineering with this game. I thought for sure this was going to be a low-scoring game and a low-scoring series. And sure enough, we see St. Louis and Winnipeg, and I thought that was going to be a low-scoring start to the series. It was 2-2 after the first period. So I'm going to rely on a little reverse engineering and a little history here. Carolina and the Islanders, game 1 of their series last year. First round, Carolina had home ice. Carolina hosted game 1. The game went over the total, and the game went in the first period. Both teams scored in the first period, and the game went over the total for the game. It was actually an over game last year. In that game with the Hurricanes and the Islanders. So keep that in mind. Actually, no, I beg your pardon. The first full game stayed under, but the first period over, and the first period both teams to score, both cashed, and it was a frantic start in that game. That's what I'm going to go with here. I'm going to go with a little bit of an over 1.5 first period and both teams to score in the first period. I do think Carolina gets on the board, because I was going to do initially Carolina to score in the first period, like I did with Winnipeg yesterday, just to Carolina to get a goal in the first period. I think New Jersey could chip in. They're going to be loose. There's not, they should be. They're on the road. There's not a lot of gigantic expectations for them in this game and in this series and to make a long playoff run. So I don't mind the full game over as well. Like, let's be honest, both games yesterday went over 5.5 totals. Now, it was a stress to get there with the Dallas game, but obviously it easily went there got over with the Winnipeg St. Louis game. So I'll sprinkle on the over 5.5 too and make this a trifecta. But I like the early looks even better. I think you have a chance both teams get on the board in the opening period. So I will go with that here. Nothing other than that in this game. I think Carolina wins. If you like Carolina, I'm telling you right now, please either take them in regulation or bet that team total at plus money over 3.5. Again, both winning favorites yesterday scored 5 and went over their team total. Save the juice. Don't lay the big number. Save the juice. take the team total if you like Carolina. That's what I would do if I like the Hurricanes here in this first game. And by the way, one other thing, too, about this particular game and moving forward, this series, I should say, I didn't like the price, obviously, with Carolina, but there were a bunch of these series where I liked the team, and I figured, how am I going to get involved pre-series, or do I just wait, maybe see if they fall behind? But I did grab Winnipeg, Carolina, Toronto, and Vegas in a 4-team series parlay, and that turned out to be in the more than plus 300. So, it was pretty solid price for that 4-teamer. Again, it's just Vegas, Toronto, Carolina, Winnipeg to win their 4 series. I took that on Friday, I believe it was, and it was plus 310. So that is how I got involved with my Carolina opinion without obviously laying the big price, which I didn't want to do, obviously. Alex, what do you think here? Devils, Hurricanes?
Now, yeah, for series, the only thing I have here is Carolina to win 4-1 exact. I grabbed that. That was plus 350 was the price I have. So that's the only thing I have as far as pre-game or pre-series, I should say, looks. As far as this game goes, you mentioned about looking at 5 goals from the 2 teams that won. Something else that happened from the 2 teams also won, we saw them score an empty net goal. So I will be sprinkling on that pregame. I'm looking at Hurricanes to score an empty net goal plus 220, an empty net goal in the game overall by anybody, yes, plus 115. Those are both available at BetMGM. So I'm already on those. Everything else I can kind of look for live. I like the first period overlook, but right now at even money, I can wait a couple minutes and try to grab this at plus 120, plus 125. We'll grab both teams to score in the first period pregame because that's plus 200 at FanDuel. So that's a really good price for that, and I wouldn't be shocked to see that. And you can also take shots with both team, each team individually to score in the first 10 minutes. I see it Bet Online, New Jersey's plus 225, Carolina's plus 170. So those are some small shots I may look at pregame, but definitely like goals here. It's certainly early if nothing else. And I think Carolina could win it and maybe pot empty net goal. So empty net goal in the game plus 115. Carolina to score the empty net plus 220. And then we'll go with that first period over and all those looks in game.
I'll give you 2 Devils that I'm interested in. Obviously, Bratt and Heeshear and Tatar for those are some obvious candidates. Meyer, some obvious candidates, guys that have to get it done offensively for this team to have a chance to win this series. But I'm going to give you 2 that I trust. I trust Stefan Noesen. I just do. I think he's a playoff guy. He's going to get power play time, big body, big presence in front of the net. If you remember, he used to play with the Carolina Hurricanes, so he gets to face his old team where he played 3 seasons before he joined New Jersey. So you've got that angle as well. I think it's a great angle, in my opinion, Stefan Noesen to have a series. And I remember him in the playoffs last year with Carolina, Alex. He had a good playoff. He made some impact as well. So Stefan Noesen for New Jersey, I like that for them. And Dawson Mercer's the other one. This is a guy that I think that in the playoffs is going to take a step forward and be a difference maker when you expect Bratt and Heeshear and all those guys to be very solid. But like I said, I think Dawson Mercer could make an impact here in this. And then Carolina on their side of the equation, Seth Jarvis, I already mentioned, I like him maybe to lead the series in goals. I think he could be that much of a difference. Jackson Blake's been outstanding down the stretch. Now I know playoffs are a new thing for him. But I just get that feeling Jackson Blake certainly could make an impact in this series for the Carolina Hurricanes. Love the way he played and the offensive contributions he made down the stretch. And on that third line, don't sleep on that third line that's captained or centered, I should say, by the captain, Jordan Staal. When you have Logan Stankoven on one side, former member of the Dallas Stars, who has some playoff experience, that I like as far as a prop, and Jordan Martinook. I'm agreeing with there's a bunch of people that have suggested Jordan Martinook, and it's true. He is, you know what he is? He reminds me so much, and I keep mentioning his name, with a guy that was always a guy that did much in the regular season offensively, but Jordan Martinook reminds me of Joel Ward. Joel Ward years ago, Washington Capitals, San Jose Sharks. Guy would be lucky to score 10 goals in the regular season, and he'd get half of those goals in the playoffs. He'd get to half of that number. He just elevated his game, and he'd find a way to score some big goals for you in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And Jordan Martinook has kind of turned into that kind of a player the last few playoff seasons for the Carolina Hurricanes. So there you go. It's actually a nice little prop game. I see good value. Noesen, Mercer for the Devils, Blake, Jarvis, Stankoven and Martinuk for the Hurricanes here. I think some combination of those players will make an impact in this game and in this series for their respective teams. All right, Ottawa and Toronto. The Battle of Ontario is back after 21 years, 2004. And if you remember that series of Battle of Ontario, Ottawa-Toronto playoff matchups, Toronto dominated all of them pretty much for the most part. They had the better of it. Will that continue? This is 21 years later, and obviously it's a totally different era, different coaches, different players. Obviously, the style of NHL hockey's changed quite a bit since then. But here we go. Sens and Leafs, Toronto minus 165, home favorites, 5.5 the total here in this one. Toronto is, we talked about this with Winnipeg. When you watch Toronto all season, you see all the elements of a true Stanley Cup contender and a team that can win it all. The only thing you're worried about is the baggage and the black cloud and the constant failures and the ineptitude of the franchise, and just find a way to not get it done, which the Toronto Maple Leafs have been doing for 20 years outside of one series win against Tampa 2 years ago. And of course, the drought of no Stanley Cup since 1967. I mean, not even a Stanley Cup final since 1967 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. No question. They have not responded to this playoff pressure before. The one thing that would concern me about Toronto is, and I certainly made a point of looking into this, their game one history has not been great the last few years. If you remember, they've lost the Boston series last year. Now, they lost the series in 7, but they lost in game one of that series. If you go back 2 years ago, even the one series that they did win against Tampa Bay, they lost game one of that series. So they have not been a very good game one team, but those were all Sheldon Keefe Leaf teams. The guy that Perlo, as was in the chat, says is the worst coach in the NHL. Perlo is not a Sheldon Keefe fan. Those were all Keefe Leafs. That kind of sounds funny saying it like that. Keefe Leafs. They were. This is Craig Berube Leafs now. Guy that's won a Stanley Cup as a head coach with St. Louis in 2019. Street cred and all that for what he can do and take a team on a big run. We'll see if that carries over. Let's see if Scotiabank Arena. I'm not holding my breath that they're going to be anything else but the wine and cheese crowd when it's all said and done. But like I said, let's see if they ramp it up a little bit. I mean, you've got and every year he's doing this. God love him. One of the great play-by-play men in the sport for decades, Joe Bowen, voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs on radio and was on TV for a bit. He's always begging Leaf fans on Twitter X to say, make some noise, get off your feet and cheer and give these boys the support they need. We'll see if they finally heed those words here in this game. It looks like Toronto will have Jake McCabe and Lawson Tossum, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, both at their disposal. These were guys that were injured down the stretch, but it looks like they're both good to go. They both got the green light of health, and it looks like Jake McCabe, Oliver Ekman-Larsson are back. So it's looking like a Morgan Rielly, Brandon Carlo, and that pairing has really played well down the stretch. They have found something that works with Morgan Rielly alongside Brandon Carlo. That has been a very good pairing for them. Jake McCabe gets reunited with Christopher Tanev, and then Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Simone Benoit rounding things out. So it looks like Philippe Myers will be the healthy scratch tonight on the blue line. Up front, of course, you got the Nyes, Matthews, Marner trio. Domi is going to get the first shot, it looks like, with John Tavares and William Nylander. Doesn't surprise me. Max Domi has had some good playoff performances in years past as well, even with Toronto last year. I thought he was one of their better players in the Boston series. Bobby McMahon, Pontus Holmberg, Nick Robertson, the third line, Stephen Lorentz, Scott Lawton, Calle Yarncroke, the fourth line. For Ottawa, there was some Brady Tkachuk took a puck in practice, but he's fine. He'll play. Tkachuk, Stützle, Giroux, David Perron, someone to watch out for. This is a guy with legit tons of playoff experience. This is a guy that could be an unsung hero and under-the-radar difference maker for Ottawa, playing with Dylan Cousins and Drake Batherson, Ridley Gregg, our guy, Shane Parlay-Pinto, Michael Amadio, and then Highmore Gaudette, and Fabian Zetterlund actually starting this series on the fourth line, potentially. We'll have to wait and see. Although I think Nick Cousins might get in. They might have to update this. I think Nick Cousins might get in now that he's healthy and ready to play. I don't know why you wouldn't want Nick Cousins in your playoff lineup. We know he can be an agitator. He gets in your face, and he can irritate, certainly, the opponent. This is a game where I think Toronto's ready to have a strong start for a change, but obviously I don't want to lay minus 165. This is one of those deals where maybe it's like yesterday. Maybe there's some nerves at the beginning. Maybe Ottawa does score the first goal, and we can get a better price. I will be targeting Toronto live at plus money. Put it that way, if we ever see it in this game. Maybe this is like yesterday. Winnipeg's just a little tight early. Blues took advantage. Maybe Toronto's feeling that a little bit early with, a lot of expectations and all the recent early exits. Ottawa loose as a goose. Maybe they get on the board first, get on the board early, and then you can get Toronto live during the game, which is going to be my approach. I did sprinkle just a bit on the Leaf team total, actually, at plus money over 3.5. That I did do in this game. We'll see how it goes. And I did sprinkle a bit on the over 5.5 in this game. Just because, again, we have seen 2 5.5s, and they both went over the total. And for as much as the Leafs have been great at the defensive end of the ice, you look at some of these Ottawa-Toronto games, there's been a little bit more of an up-and-down component at times to them. And at 5.5, at barely even money, minus 110, I think the over's worth a shot here. So a couple of small pregame bets only. Leafs team total over 3.5. I will be targeting not only Toronto at plus money, Alex, but I will be targeting at some point the Toronto first period goal. I'm not going to lay it now. It's just too expensive right now pregame. But if it falls to close to even money, we get a scoreless start or Toronto's off the board for a good 5 or 10 minutes to begin, we'll bet it live because I think they could get a first period goal here, much like we saw at a Winnipeg yesterday. Alex, what do you think here? Battle of Ontario. It's so good to see it again. Ottawa, Toronto.
It really is. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see both atmospheres. Certainly, when we talk about Game 3 and 4 in Ottawa, seeing playoff hockey back there for the first time in a long time. But obviously, like you said, Toronto, we know how, like I said, all eyes on them. The crowds outside, the quiet crowd inside, and the loud crowd outside. But I think this is going to be a game where we kind of see it. Like I said, it's going to be a timid pace early. This may be one of those games like we saw yesterday with Colorado-Dallas where, second period over, out of the scoreless first looks to be ripe and prime. So I'm kind of gearing myself up for that. I think this is the first game we see go past regulation. And I do have the draw in pocket, plus 330. Now, FanDuel has had this prop all season long. They have it again in the playoffs. I think this actually started last postseason. Game to reach overtime and overtime goal scorer. I do have one of those picked out. I will mention that later on. All of them are at giant prices, obviously. So that will be a bargain bin special. But I think this is a game that, like I said, we see the goals in the middle of the game, and then things kind of taper back off, and then we'll see this one go into overtime. So this is one. I didn't give this out on the preview show, but I might dabble in this because I'm seeing this high of a price. 3 games to go to overtime in this series at 8-1 over at BetMGM. I think I might put a little bit of that in pocket small to go with the series portfolio.
This is going to be, especially from the Toronto side, is Toronto, in my opinion, finally, perhaps, I stress it, perhaps, because, we've seen the Leafs just fall flat and go out so early, so often, but why perhaps Toronto might finally be ready to make a deep playoff run, the commitment team-wide to blocking shots. The teams, the blocked shots that we have seen from Toronto have been outstanding throughout this season. It's been really something to behold, and I'm going to look toward, and this is a great price on it. You could be a little bit safer. You could do the safe same game parlay here with these 3 players, all blue liners, as far as blocked shots are concerned. You can put them all in a parlay in the plus 250 to plus 300 range. Chris Tanev, Jake McCabe, Brandon Carlo, all to get 2 blocked shots. 2 or more blocked shots in the game, all 3 of them plus 250 in a same game parlay. I think it's a great bet. I really do. They're shot blocking machines. They're good. They've Berube's ingrained them to do that, ingrained them to play that way. And again, 2 or more blocked shots for Tanev, McCabe, and Carlo on the blue line, plus 250. And if you want to be even a little braver, because I think certainly I like Tanev on his own for 3 block shots.
I was going to say, the way Tanev plays, he accidentally blocks 2 shots a game. Like he steps in front of one and doesn't even realize it. The way that he is in the playoffs.
How is his individual blocked shots prop over 2.5 just plus 110 here? I think that's a great solo bet.
I'll bet. Yeah, I'd bet that. Yeah.
And shout out to Ryan Robinson. Incredible call yesterday with Essa Lindell over 2.5 blocked shots. I definitely think the Tanev over 2.5 blocked shots is a phenomenal bet. Like, it's honestly best bet worthy for me on the show today. It's actually getting best bet consideration for me. It's a great bet, in my opinion. Christopher Tanev over 2.5 blocked shots, plus 110. Like I said, I like the Tanev, McCabe, Carlo trio for the Leafs. And you can get that at plus 250. All of them have 2 blocked shots. Tanev on his own. And you could even do the 3+ blocked shots parlay with Tanev, McCabe, and Carlo. And that's 16-1. If you really want to get, a little bit creative on that. So, and plus, to Bailey's point, I could see, Ottawa just so much energy that they actually carry the play early in the game, which is good for betting Toronto block shots, because you want that. You want these guys to have to be facing shot attempts from the Ottawa Senators. That's what's going to cash these bets. No question. So, like I said, I think there's some good block shots props here, especially on the Toronto side of the equation, because that's the way they're going to play, and Berube demands it, and the players, to their credit, have heated playing that way. Goaltending, I forgot to mention, but I will briefly. We know it's going to be Linus Ullmark. He's the best goalie Ottawa's had in years, but he's also a guy that did not play great in limited playoff action that we saw with the Bruins, up and down. And look, Anthony Stolarz has had an outstanding season. He's played like one of the best goalies in the NHL. The only concern would be lack of playoff experience, but I caution you on this lack of playoff experience narrative. It didn't seem to bother Mackenzie Blackwood last night for the Colorado Avalanche. And I believe in Stolarz. He's been that good. He's a towering individual in the net. He covers so much of the net. His movement for a guy of his size isn't ridiculous how good it is, how smooth it is, in my opinion. So I'm not worried, actually, about Stolarz. I think he's going to be fine in the playoffs. I think he's going to be fine.
And a counterpoint on the other end with Ottawa, where people say, oh, Linus Ullmark's playoff struggles. Let's keep in mind the fact that, of course, a couple of years ago, best team in NHL regular season history, he gets hurt in that series and still plays through it. So to see him now with a different team playing fully healthy, that's going to be something to watch as well.
Absolutely. It's an excellent point. Yeah, as far as props go, I like Pinto for Ottawa. I think that makes some sense, for me, as far as getting on the board, making an impact. I think Perron, and there are some good numbers to back it up with him against Stolarz. So, like I said, it would shock me to see him make an impact. And like I said, I think Pinto could be that under-the-radar commodity. How does Dylan Cousins play? He's finally now out of Buffalo, so he's finally getting a chance, to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll see how he fares with it. And of course, for Toronto, Max Domi. I've just got that weird sense with him because he was good in the playoffs last year against Boston, even though they didn't win that series. And of course, Matthew Knies, hungry Knies, 1 goal from you, and Matthew Knies. Yeah, no doubt. I've got him to lead the series in goals. I've got him, I think, over 1.5, 2.5 goals in the series as well. We expect him. He scores the kind of goals Toronto sometimes lacks in the playoffs. Go to the net front, drive, win puck battles. He's a hell of a competitor, too, on pucks. That's what we've noticed all year out of Matthew Knies. So, like I said, I think he's got the chance to definitely make an impact here in this series. All right, final game of this Sunday triple header, Minnesota-Vegas. They get going in game 1 of their series. Vegas -200 home favorites, 5.5 the total. There's a big narrative. Vegas could win the Stanley Cup and win the West, and they certainly could. But there's also been times Vegas has looked very ordinary. And I feel that if they had drawn anybody but Minnesota in the first round, I would have maybe taken a shot fading them, quite honestly. That's just me. But they got the opponent that I think they can dominate. They've just got a ton of size, lean on this Minnesota team. And as much as we love Kaprizov in particular, a little smaller in stature, he's going to take a physical pounding in this series. Vegas will target him, shut Kaprizov down, the head of the snake, and you shut down this Minnesota Wild team. I think it's a good matchup for Vegas, quite honestly, here against this Minnesota Wild team. But game 1, I'm going to let it go. Obviously, you're talking about Vegas laying a big price. I did dabble in the 5.5 over here as well, just because of the two games yesterday going up and over the total of 5.5. It could be one of those starts where everyone expects a low-scoring game. It's Minnesota. It's a Vegas team that is as good defensively as any team in the playoffs, with Haig, Pietrangelo, McNabb, Theodore, Hannafin, White Cloud. They're all healthy. Aiden Hill It's a guy that will be in net for them that won a Stanley Cup 2 years ago. And yet people will think automatically going to be a low-scoring game. And, we saw that work with Winnipeg yesterday. And, again, these game ones, it's pretty crazy how often they've been a little bit more higher scoring than you think. Jonathan says Vegas in 5 in this series. Yeah, I think Vegas wins this series. Again, minus 200 in the first game. Again, if you like Vegas here in game 1, take a shot with that team total over. Gustafsson is kind of an enigma. We know it's going to be Philip Gustafsson, of course, for the Minnesota Wild. What's troubling you, Gus? What's troubling Gus? Yeah, Philip Gustafsson. 2.56 goals against, 914 save percentage here for him entering the playoffs. We'll see how he's able to fare in this one. I think when you look at Minnesota, the good news for Minnesota, I'll give them some good news. They're healthy, and they weren't for much of the second half of the season. At least now you got Kaprizov, you got Eriksson Ek, you've got Marco Rossi, Boldy, Zuccarello, Johansson. Anybody and everybody that was injured is healthy. The two guys on the blue line that are like a walking, talking infirmary half the time, Jonas Brodin and Jared Spurgeon, my gosh, even they're healthy to start this series, at least for now. No question about that. So great for them. Brock Faber, you'll see how he fares. Obviously, we like him quite a bit. And the X factor on the blue line, at least, this kid out of Denver, okay, Zeev Buium for the Minnesota Wild. Incredible offensive talent from the blue line. We saw, 70-some assists at the college level this year, over 20 goals. Very dynamic, offensive-minded defenseman. And this is not only his first NHL Stanley Cup playoff game. This is his first NHL game, period. Because John Hines, for some reason, didn't give him that game or two to get acclimated to life in the NHL before just throwing him in here for game 1 against Vegas. So you talk about a big spot to put a young kid in, a talented young kid, but still a big spot nevertheless with Zeev Buium going to get this opportunity here right away to be on the blue line. Now, it looks like they've slotted him with Zach Bogosian on the third pairing. They're going to keep Middleton and Spurgeon together, Brodin and Faber together. So third pair defense for Buium here in his debut. But more importantly, they're going to give him number 1 power play time. Number 1 unit. He is listed on the number 1 power play unit for the Minnesota Wild to start this series with Eriksson Ek, Kaprizov, Zuccarello, and Boldy. So that tells you that they think there's some really good offensive instincts and capabilities out of this kid. And so where I'm going with this is I think the point prop, or you could split it up into a goal and an assist prop as well. I think it's worth a shot. I mean, the point prop by itself is close to plus 190 with Zeev Buium here in this game for the Minnesota Wild. So with him getting these minutes and him going to get power play time, you could almost walk into his first NHL point here by accident. So you could either bet the point prop or you could split it up into goal prop, assist prop individually. It's basically doing the same thing. But that definitely stands out. There's been a lot of talk, and I know in our group, and I couldn't say no to it, that Pavel Dorofeyev could be one of those under-the-radar snipers in this playoff run for Vegas with the season he's had. What I would say is don't sleep on Nick Waugh. Don't sleep on William Karlsson, who has been a guy that's performed in the playoffs in the past, and Riley Smith, now that he's back with Vegas. This is a guy that was good playoff performer. He's back with the team he had the most success with in his career. I wouldn't even be shocked to see Riley Smith have an impact here throughout these playoffs as well. So those are some props to maybe consider. For Minnesota, I like the Buium props just from the value. Doesn't mean he's going to produce right away in his first game, but from a value standpoint, it's worth a look. I think Rossi has some value too for the Minnesota Wild. Probably go in those directions as far as props here in this game. And for me, just a small over 5.5 bet, and I will target maybe some kind of live look on Vegas should they fall behind, kind of like I'm doing with Toronto. Alex, what do you think here? Minnesota, Vegas, game 1.
Yeah, I think this is going to be, a one-sided series. Like I said, I already bet Vegas in 5. I talked about that in the series, this playoff preview. But this is one where I do like that over 5.5, and I don't like first period over. I see some people talking about first period draw. I wouldn't be shocked to see this one be scoreless after 20 minutes. I think this one also has that kind of little bit of a stagnant, kind of stalemate kind of feel early, and then we see adjustments made in the second period and beyond getting to that over 5.5. So it'll be a small look for me because then I'll be looking to maybe grab the over 4.5 as well. I did that yesterday in that Colorado Dallas game when I got the second period over 1.5. So those things I'm kind of combining when I'm looking at live stuff in the second period. I don't really do the gift so much, especially because we're seeing inflated prices, and it's only going to probably go up now because of this trend. I don't know if you saw yesterday. That first period over or second period over 1.5 opened minus 200 offshore. And I think it was 170, 180 at most domestic books with Colorado Dallas. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to really wait probably maybe 4 or 5 minutes into that. So goal in first 10 minutes, you can maybe, try and put something on that to kind of isolate yourself. You can't, insulate yourself, I should say, if you can't grab that live. But definitely want to just make a note of that where we're seeing these prices kind of open up a little bit bigger. But looking for live looks like the over at full game in this spot. And there will be a Vegas play that I'll mention a little bit later in the bargain room.
All right, there we go. Bargain bin specialties for the end of the show. And as far as your talked about block shots, and like I said, there's a bunch I like from Toronto in that particular game. I would certainly, by the way, for New Jersey, Carolina, as far as block shots go, Jacob Slavin's got to be on your radar. That guy just eats pucks for them. There's no question about that. So Slavin would be a good candidate. Brett Pesce would probably be a good candidate too. The former Hurricane, who's now with the New Jersey Devils. Like I said, Tanev, Carlo, McCabe for Toronto. In this game, there'd be a couple as well. Braden McNabb's a shot blocking machine for Vegas. He definitely would be someone to keep an eye on as well for a block. Spurgeon, he'll block a shit ton of shots as well. That's how he gets hurt all the time. Blocks so many shots.
That's true.
For the Minnesota Wild. So Spurgeon and McNabb, I think, would be my two favorite block shot candidates, in my opinion, on either side. Pietrangelo is certainly someone that'll block block shots as well. They all will, but certainly the guys that are especially, that's their role, like a Tanev. Like Tanev's not there to score 50 points. He's there to be good defensively and block shot. That's McNabb. That's Spurgeon. They're not there to light it up. They're there to be sound defensively and suppress those shots, get in the shooting lanes, that kind of stuff. So that's why I like targeting those type of defensemen even more.
Are there forwards on those props as well? Because you can take a shot with a guy like a Marcus Foligno. And he's a guy who, let's look at some of those fourth line forwards as well to give the body and block some shots. And you might get better prices. You might see some 1.5s at plus money with the forwards where you see 2.5s or 3s with the defensemen. So. Yeah,
no doubt. So make sure you shop around with that. You'll be able to find mostly defensemen, but once in a while they will slip in, a forward or two. But shop around if you can find them, as not every book has the forwards as far as blocked shots are concerned for the individual games. But if you can find them, certainly it would make sense with that. But yeah, all right, good stuff. There you go. That is and by the way, like I said, Hill and Gustafson going to be the matchup here. ESPN, I beg you. If the baseball game, San Diego and Houston, if it runs past 10 p.m. Eastern, they're not going to do it because apparently the contract with MLB, which they're actually getting out of after this year, says they got to stick with that game right till the end, even if it's 9-1 in the ninth inning. So unfortunately, it means that if that game goes past 10 p.m. Eastern, it's going to end up, ESPN2 is going to start the Minnesota Vegas game. It's going to start on there.
Hopefully it's ESPN2. But what if the Toronto Ottawa game goes into overtime, which I believe will happen? Right. Then you're probably looking at ESPN News, which you got to find because when the last time anyone turned to ESPN News?
Yeah, exactly. So this could become a shit show, at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And speaking of shit shows, I love TNT and the studio show again was great. It always is, led by Liam and company. But that's a disgrace with John Forsland and the crew having to do the game from a studio.
Yeah.
And John Forsland's awesome. He's amazing. But it makes him look bad when he's doing the game from a studio. Send the broadcasters to the arena. I know they had the rinkside reporter there, Megan Mickelson there, and that she was the only one though. That's why you never saw John Forsland and Jennifer Botterill on camera once, because they weren't there in Winnipeg at Canada Life Center for that show. I mean, are we that hard up financially, Turner Sports? We can't send these guys right to the arena, the venue, at playoff time or most important time of the year to call these games. Now, the question is this going to change now that NBA is going to be off their books next year at Turner because they lose the NBA rights after this year? Is that going to free up the cap space, if you will, for them to actually get Johnny Forsland and Jennifer on a plane next year to the venue for all the playoff games? No doubt. So that's just, I don't like that. That's being cheap. That's cheapening up, being cheap on, one of the biggest events of the year on your network. And I don't like seeing it.
And I'm hoping that's just
That's
the
why I
first
watched
round
that game
thing.
on Sportsnet, and I love Johnny. I would have chosen the Johnny Forsland play-by-play over anybody, but I was watching Harna Ryan Singh and John Garrett, the Sportsnet crew, because it was more authentic of a broadcast. They were right there in the arena, and even the acoustics of the crowd sounded a lot better on the Sportsnet broadcast than TNT. Like, you could tell they were in a studio when I flipped it on to that broadcast for a bit.
Yeah, it changes the whole dynamic of when you're watching the game, and I agree. And like I said, hopefully it's just a first round thing that they're doing this for, and then as they get further into the rounds, and they'll send everybody out. We know, I think it's the Eastern Conference Final they have full rights to this year, so we know the studio crew will be out there live and both team venues and stuff like that. So hopefully they can correct this. But yeah, that's a bad look.
It's a bad look indeed, no question. All right. What's not a bad look is signing up at patreon.com. How about that for a segue? /Ice Guys. Make sure you check that out. It's not a bad look at all, especially at this time of year where we've got Stanley Cup playoff action, our daily betting cards, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page, and our first Stanley Cup playoff live betcast, which will be exclusive to our great Patreon members this Thursday, April the 24th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Note the start time because that's when the first game gets going. Tampa, Florida, game 2 starts at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. So make sure you join us. Patreon exclusive. The only way to be there on the betcast and join us on the stream is to sign up as a Patreon member. Patreon.com/Ice Guys. Just $10 per month. Again, goalie charts, totals charts, power ratings, daily betting card, and of course, access to all our Patreon exclusive live betcasts for the rest of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Make sure you get on board. Patreon.com/Ice Guys. Just $10 per month.
Also, check out the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. For 4 days left, you can get 10% off of 3 items or more. So you visit the website, hit the redeem button at the homepage, add 3 or more items to your cart, 10% will be taken off at checkout. We've got a bunch of new stuff. We've got the Ice Guys shirt here, and Ian's got on the draw season shirt as well.
There it is.
Wonderful, a bunch of wonderful items that you can get right now at the Ice Guys store. So check that on out. Save 10% on 3 or more items for the next 4 days. That's at iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
Check it out. All right, we got Bargain Bin Special of the night. Best bets coming up in just a moment, right after we hear from our great Ice Guys sponsors.
Support for the Ice Guys podcast is provided by Boston Hemp Incorporated, Tailgaters Social, and a big thank you to all that subscribe to the Ice Guys Patreon page. Everyone loves a perfect pair. Bacon and eggs. Thunder and lightning. Mario and Luigi. A hot dog with fries. Ian and Alex B. That's right. Everyone loves a perfect pair. So why not pair up your game nights with Boston Hemp? From exotic flower to concentrates and edible products. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better pairing than Boston Hemp and hockey. Check them out today at bostonhempinc.com. That's bostonhempinc.com. Boston Hemp Incorporated, the official smoke sponsor of the Ice Guys. Void where prohibited by law. Not available outside of the United States. Must be 21 or over to obtain products. Check your local regulations to see if Boston Hemp is available in your area.
Hey, Ian, I got to tell you about this app I've been using lately called Kalshi. Kalshi.com. Did you know it's the only place where you can trade on March Madness in all 50 U.S. states?
I have heard about this, actually. Kalshi is the first and only legal prediction market that lets you trade on real-world events with the look and feel of stock trading, whether it's who will win elections, who will win the Grammy or Oscar awards, or what the price of Bitcoin will hit this year. You can bet you trade on just about anything on Kalshi.
With over 1 million users across all 50 states and over $1 billion worth of trades, Kalshi is an absolute game changer. And with March Madness coming to a close, baseball about to get in the full swing, playoffs on the horizon in hockey and basketball, now's the time to sign up to trade with Kalshi today.
Sign up at Kalshi.com/IceGuys, and the first 500 traders to join and trade 100 contracts, you will get a free $10 credit added to your account. So don't miss out on all the action. Join Kalshi today at Kalshi.com/IceGuys. That's Kalshi.com/IceGuys. Shout out to all our great sponsors. Boston Hemp Inc., 20% off using the promo code IceGuys at BostonHempInc.com and Kalshi.com/IceGuys. Again, make sure you check that out. A great trading platform. This is 420, of course.
Right.
Make sure you check out the great deal. 40% off so that you can get stoned high as a kite at the dinner table around the turkey tonight for Easter Sunday. Make sure you get on that at BostonHempInc.com. 40% off for promo code 420 for that.
That's right.
At BostonHempInc.com. All right, bargain bin special of the night for this Sunday slate. 3 games on the docket. Alex, bargain bin special. After cashing with Charlie Coyle at the death, if you will, last night in Game 1, Mavs and the Stars. Bargain bin special for Sunday.
Well, we hit one last night. Let's try to hit 2 today. We will start with that Ottawa-Toronto game. Now, I like overtime in this spot. And I mentioned this at FanDuel. You have game to reach overtime and overtime goal scorer. Somebody that Ian has talked about in the series preview. Believes that he's going to be a huge factor for the Toronto Maple Leafs, getting in front of net, getting the dirty goals that they've struggled to get at this time of year in previous seasons. Let's go with Matthew Knies to score the game-winning goal in overtime. 70-1 is the price you can grab for that. It was actually 75-1, and then I mentioned it, so all the prices kind of knocked down a little bit maybe. But 70-1 at FanDuel for Matthew Knies to score the winning goal in overtime. That's bargain bin special number 1. Bargain bin special number 2, we go to the Minnesota and Vegas game. Ian mentioned him as well. Nicholas Waugh. You can get him at multiple books to score anytime goal at plus 600. So we're going to go with Nicholas Waugh for second bargain bin special. And the first one is Matthew Knies to score an overtime game-winning goal at 70-1.
All right, boy, oh boy, that's one of the more creative bargain bin specials we've seen. 70-1 plus 7,000. Matthew Knies, the overtime game-winning goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then Nick Waugh for Vegas, the other one for Alex. 2 bargain bin specials for him on this slate. Bargain bin specials for me, I've got 2 as well. And the first one for me will come from the early game. Yeah, Jordan Martinook at plus 700 for Carolina is great value. Phenomenal value. He's scored in the playoffs before. He's been one of those players that elevates. So Jordan Martinook, Carolina Hurricanes plus 700 for my first bargain bin special of the night. And my second bargain bin special of the night is going to come from that Minnesota-Vegas game. Let's get wild, as in Wild Bill. Wild Bill, William Karlsson for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is another guy that we have seen him step up his game in the postseason for the Golden Knights. Plus 360 at DraftKings. William Karlsson for the Vegas Golden Knights for my second bargain bin special of the night. All right, best bets for this Sunday. Alex, we'll start with you. What do you like for best bet?
We're going to go a little off the grid for best bet here. We're going to go to that Ottawa-Toronto game. Give me both teams to score in the second period, plus 140. That's available at FanDuel. Like I said, I think it's going to be kind of a feel-out process in the first 20 minutes, and then we see things open up. Of course, we'll be looking for second period overs live. Follow us on Patreon for that. But pregame, we'll go with that second period, both teams to score, plus 140 at FanDuel in the Ottawa-Toronto game.
All right, there you go. Second period, both teams to score. Battle of Ontario, Sens Leafs for Alex B. Smith with his best bet. My best bet for this Sunday card, let's go to that first game, and let's go to that first period over with Devils and Hurricanes. Over 1.5 plus 100. New Jersey, Carolina, first period over. I like it. we have some history here. New Jersey, Carolina, game 1, second round, 2 years ago in Carolina. First period went over the total. Last year, Carolina hosted the New York Islanders. First round, game 1 in this very building, the Lenovo Center, as it's now called. The game went over the total in the first period as well. And I think we'll see that happen here once again today. So New Jersey, Carolina, over 1.5 plus 100. First period for my best bet here for this Sunday of playoff action. All right, shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button on the way out. We appreciate it. Happy Easter Sunday if you celebrate, and hope you enjoy the day. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the Stanley Cup playoff action, and good luck. And we'll be back tomorrow on Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern, for another edition of the Ice Guys.